So children, today we are going to study topic number 5, the abolition of slavery. In that we are going to study the topic triangular slave trade. Now what was this triangular slave trade? The triangular slave trade was amongst 3 continents, that was Europe, Africa and North America. That time, earlier time, the European countries were very much powerful and they had their colonies on the other continent. Now, meaning of colonies, as for example, you can take India. We had the colonies of British rule, means we were under control of British government. So, 150 years we were the colony of Great Britain. Yes, in that same way, European countries, exactly we are talking about France. France had their colony in North America. Okay, these are the rough diagrams which I am going to show you. So in this we will see in the North America there were some islands, small islands. That islands were called Caribbean island. Okay, so in that Caribbean island France had its colonies, means some of the provinces, some of the region, they were the under control of France. They were under control of France. So in that exactly name we will see, in that we have Martinique and Guadeloupe and San Domingo. These 3 provinces were the colony from the Caribbean island. From the Caribbean island, these 3 were the colony of whom? Of France. So when they were the colonies, that time the big merchant in this Caribbean area, Caribbean colony, the big merchant were having a good farm. In that they were taking the cultivation of what? Of the needy thing, whichever the things which are very much important in the European market, of that important things they were cultivating on this land. Yes, because that was the colony, as we India also had the colony. So from India, the Britishers were also taking the cultivation of crops, like we have cotton, then we have indigo, then tea, coffee, spices. This all the type of production they were taking from the cultivable land of India, and they were transporting it to where? To the England. Yes, in that same way France had the colony, Caribbean colony. From that colony, from the Caribbean, France was supposed to take the cultivation of, here we have in the book you can see, sugar, coffee and indigo. Yes, sugar, coffee and indigo. These 3 things they were taking the cultivation from where? From the Caribbean area. Yes, Caribbean island, and then they were taking to where? To the France. So France people will be beneficial from that. Yes. So this type of trade was going on. This type of things were going on. In this, what was happened exactly? When that cultivation was expanding, the production was expanding, that time here in the Caribbean area there was the shortage of labor, means the laborers were not available for working on that farms, working on the land, to cultivate on the land. So in that case there was a big problem for France people, because in the European market there was a shortage of the sugar, coffee and indigo. Now what to do? So in such case France searched for the idea. What they did, the European laborers, the laborers from the European continent, they were not ready to go to the Caribbean island. So if the European labor are not ready to go to the Caribbean island, then France, some people from France, they went to Africa, South Africa. As we know, the maximum people of South Africa, they were the tribal people, and earlier time their condition of South African people very much bad, because there was a hardship and job were very less. So that time many people were working as a slave. So they were working as a slave under the big merchant, means big merchants were there, big don merchant, this type of peoples were there. Under that, the African tribals, they were working as a slave. So France people came to Africa and they purchased some merchants, they purchased slaves from the merchants, means those were the big merchants in the Africa. From that merchant, they started purchasing the slave. Yes, they started purchasing the slave, means in very less money they were purchasing the slave from Africa. And slaves slaves they were transporting where? In the Caribbean continent, in the Caribbean island. Yes. And for what purpose? So that the planters and big merchants of Caribbean island who were from France, that France cultivators, they can make use of these slaves and they can cultivate the indigo, coffee and sugar, etc. And that cultivable crops will be sent to the European market. So in very cheap money, the France was purchasing, in the very cheap rate, the France was purchasing labor from South Africa, and that labor like goods they were packing in the boxes, and that packed boxes they were transporting by ship.